here. Welcome. We're excited. We'll try to keep it tight and tidy for the next hour. And for a real quick lay of the land, we hope this comes across as being a slightly different webinar than what your typical dental webinar is, as lovely and informative as those are. This is going to have a bit more levity and engagement, and you can see there's a panel. It's not just one person talking directly at you. So if you even want to have your screen on, you're welcome to. I doubt you'll take me up on it, but I'd love to see somebody surprise me and kind of share in and make it a full group experience. No worries if you don't. Again, put your name in the chat so we can log your attendance, and we are going to get started. Here it is. All right, so as you can see, and like I just mentioned, it's not just going to be one person talking to you, it's going to be all three. Before I turn it over to everyone to introduce themselves, one more note of understanding and for context, this evening is going to focus on the business and operational side of what IV sedation can do. If you want to dive into more of the clinical side because you're so pumped about the business side, and again, we hope that is what happens at the end of the hour, we're happy to connect you to the faculty that's on our team. And certainly along the way, feel free to throw those questions in the chat. But this is a bit more on the business side, and specifically, of course, our program to become IV sedation certified. For clinical questions, we can turn those over to the faculty who would love to dive into the nitty gritty. And with that, Joy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you. So my name is Joy Santoro. I am the president of Vesper Institute. If you are not familiar, we are located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Our home for CE and dental education, and specifically our IV sedation course, takes place in that lovely historic building that you see on your screen. We just underwent a large renovation to really make this a state-of-the-art facility where you can learn all different aspects of dentistry, but really in a comfortable, really warm environment. So you're going to hear more about what we offer at Vesper Institute, but that's who I am. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with the rest of my amazing team at Vesper. So I'm going to have Clay introduce himself next.
Walk up song, go. New term for me. Clay, again, echoing all the thank you for spending some time with us tonight. It dawned on me, as we were talking earlier, my kid's teacher calls Thursday, Friday Junior. So it means a lot to us that you would spend 45 minutes to an hour on the eve of Friday Junior. So thank you. I'm part of the Vesper team, also part of the team at Advanced Dentistry. No big thing if you don't know that name. That's more to come on that particular subject. But basically, I live at the nexus point of marketing and operations, right there in that Venn diagram. So my role tonight is kind of going to be pulling back the curtain, so to speak, and kind of speaking to and hopefully sharing some helpful insights of how IV sedation can really, in reality, help out on marketing, operations, the whole kind of ecosystem of your practice, your culture, all that type of stuff. I live in it, and hopefully I can help kind of connect some dots for you tonight.
Perfect.
Back to you, Leah.
Thank you. My name is Leah. I'm on the Vesper team. My role tonight is to facilitate the conversation with some of our in-house experts, keep it moving and grooving and high energy, and make sure you do rate it as a more engaging webinar than what your typical webinars are. That's my goal. Okay, let's really get into it now. We've gotten all of those early things out of the way. Now let's get to the info, why you are here. And I'm going to have you mentally set the scene for a scenario. I hope this didn't happen today. It's possible that it did, but I hope not. Your schedule has completely fallen apart. You get there, and Mr. Smith, he canceled his appointment again. You're supposed to complete a bridge from 3 to 5. Now you've got a whole block open on your schedule. Also, your new patient didn't show up. So now you're just doing recall appointments for the next 3 hours. And you're wondering, why am I here? That's not what I went to dentistry for. It's frustrating. It feels like a waste of time. You're not making any money. It is a terrible, terrible day to have where it just totally falls apart. And, that's the challenge that we're all trying to overcome. But there's more challenges than just your schedule falling apart. So let's get into some of those. Again, to encourage you to be more engaged than you typically might be, feel free to type yes in the chat if you've experienced any of these. So staffing, I know that is a big one for dentists these days. You have an assistant come up to you and say, I need a raise, or I'm going to go to the office down the street. And you feel like you're kind of held hostage by that because you don't want to lose your staff. You don't want to have to hire somebody else. Or you have a patient sit down in the chair and the patient says, I don't want to be here. I hate the dentist. And you're like, oh, I'm so happy to have you. This is going to be a great time together. But inevitably, they don't want to see you. Or kind of back to that schedule falling apart, or maybe you even have a busy schedule, but it's unproductive. You work a whole day, you've been really busy running around, but you actually didn't make any money. You produced kind of nothing because they were meaningless appointments. Or is it all the above? Or is it something else? Sort of raise your hand if you felt any of those pain points. Sadly, I'm guessing and kind of feeling confident you've experienced at least one of them, if not all of them. And so that leads us to what we're going to define today as traditional dentistry, the old way. Fearful patients, staff who leave, busy schedules, insurance woes. Didn't even mention that one before, but you charge out $1,500 and insurance wants to reimburse you $100. And then you also have to deal with the patient who you're still trying to collect money and they thought insurance was going to cover it. And it's a whole battle and a waste of time and energy. And again, part of that frustrating experience, the grind that makes dentistry not what you hoped or thought it was going to be when you graduated. It kind of looks like working more and earning less. That's not why you went to dental school. But if that is what you're experiencing, we hope, even though those are pain points, that that's why you're here, because that is frustrating. It's honestly a little bit depressing. There is good news, and the good news is that we've uncovered a better path forward. And as if you couldn't have guessed it, it's IV sedation. It's in the title of the webinar. It's about unlocking the power of IV sedation. So over the course of the next 40 minutes, we're going to reveal the steps you could take to replicate Dr. Scott Sayre's success. Dr. Scott Sayre, he'll kind of always say, IV sedation makes your day so much easier. Who is Dr. Sayre, if you're not familiar? He is the founder of Vesper Institute, but prior to that, he was the founder of Advanced Dentistry. So that's kind of what Clay had mentioned before. And he owns 4 practices in the Cincinnati, Columbus area. And honestly, just one of his practices produces more than 5 average offices combined. I'm going to say that again because it's a lot to process. Just one of his practices produces more than 5 average offices combined. We'll get into kind of the operations of how that works. But what's even more important than that, and what Dr. Scott Sayre would say, is it's not necessarily that's like a benefit that you experience as the doctor, is that you do produce more and then you can do all these other things by producing more. But really you're doing it because you want to make the patient comfortable. That's where it starts. It starts by making the patient comfortable, getting them to say yes to treatment, and then it opens up a lot of other opportunities. So he's kind of figured out a way to build that fulfilling and profitable dental life. He wants to share it with you. That's why Vesper exists. That's why hopefully you're here. So he says, IV sedation makes your day so much easier. So let's kind of think through, what does an easier day feel like? Hopefully it feels like doing more dentistry in less time and increasing your production almost instantly. Hopefully it feels like being less dependent on PPOs and pre-collecting payment. So instead of those insurance nightmares, you're pre-collecting payment, you're not chasing it down after the fact. Another really important one, because this definitely is a struggle that we hear about, it's having staff who are motivated and excited because they're working on interesting, complex cases. They're not busy on their phones, causing drama in the office because they're not busy enough or engaged. They're doing really, really cool, interesting stuff. They want to take on more. There's room to grow. There's not the clear ceiling that might exist in a regular dental office. And that's how you retain staff. Ultimately, though, it's about providing the highest quality patient care. So again, always goes back to the patient. It's eliminating fear and anxiety. It's alleviating pain, and it's creating an experience where sometimes they'll literally say, I love going to the dentist, but if nothing else, they're not going to say, I hate the dentist, I don't want to be here. So you'll at least get that flipped in the script, which is an easier, a better day. And that's where, just to keep reinforcing these things, that's the new way. That's kind of what we want to offer as the alternative to what you might be experiencing. Happy patients, staff who stay, productive schedules, insurance freedom. It all rolls up to working less and earning more. And I think we could raise our hands and say, I'd like that. I mean, that sounds great to me. I don't know who wouldn't want that. If you want to work more, you certainly can. You'll earn even more, but working less and earning more, that's the ticket. That's what I'd love. We've been talking, for 10, 12 minutes. I'm going to give you a little bit of an out. I hope nobody leaves, but we want to make sure, again, we're on the same page. You're in this webinar room for a reason. So to be clear, when it comes to IV sedation, we believe it's the best way to practice dentistry, but we also recognize it's not for everyone. And so we just want to make sure, is it for you? It's not for you if you're looking for a quick fix solution. There's ways that it can be more efficient and we can help get you there faster than most other programs, but it's not a quick fix necessarily. If you're uncomfortable with just the thought of starting an IV, probably not for you. It's kind of in the name, so you need to be able to process the idea of starting an IV. And if you're unwilling to try new techniques, so we did a comparison, old way of dentistry, new way of dentistry. If you're unwilling to try new techniques, might not be for you. But is it for you? How would you know? Well, on the flip side, it is for you if you're interested in prioritizing patient comfort. I'm sure everybody probably would say yes to that. It is for you if you're interested in increasing daily production. Again, probably most people would say yes to that. I think the third one, that dividing line could be on expanding your clinical services. Do you want to be doing like dental surgery, more complex cases? Do you want to have an interesting, varied caseload and offer things that the regular dentist down the street doesn't offer? IV sedation's definitely for you, and we hope that you'll kind of stick with us the rest of the hour, and we'll show you how and why we think Vesper's the way to go. I've talked a lot. I'm happy to turn it over on this next slide to Clay.
High bar, big shoes. So this one is basically a thought prompt. And I hear Dr. Sayer do it all the time. So I'm going to hear hopefully I'm channeling him well. I hear his voice in my ear already. And he'll kind of toss this little thought prompt out to any room of fellow clinicians that he's speaking to, whether it's a big room, a small room, his associates, whatever. And so kind of just follow with me and kind of think through these. On the left, you've got your carpal tunnel picture. So he's like, basically, everybody look at that. If I asked you as a room, if you were going in for a carpal tunnel surgery, if that's what was diagnosed and that's what you needed to do, would you want or would you expect IV sedation or sedation to be part of the conversation? Would you like it to be on offer to you? And of course, everyone's, yes, of course, I would like for it to be part of the conversation. And then he says, why? It's way over here. It's far from the place where you get all your senses. It's, you've got a drape, you might have a block. It's maybe a 6, 7, 8 minute surgery, and you're not even paying attention to it. You got all these other things that keep you away from it. And yet we expect sedation to be part of the conversation, right? And everybody's nodding. And then he says, okay, now look at the picture on the right. Right there, you got the dentist coming at you. All the places where you get your senses, right there in your eyes, right there in your nose, right there, all the sounds, all the things where you bring fear into your brain, right there. And it's scary. That's how a lot, and we'll talk about it a little later on, that's how a huge portion of the population looks at us. And yet, no one is open or expecting sedation to be part of the conversation at all. Let's think about that. And that's really kind of the thought prompt that we want to kind of get you guys bubbling on. And with that, take it to the next slide. So this one, I think Joy's going to dive in, but yeah, I got some thoughts on this. Take it away, Joy.
Yeah. All right, I'll start and then you jump in when you're ready.
Perfect.
So one thing that Dr. Sayer always says is we need to bring it back to the patient. So yes, we're going to teach you how to make more money. Yes, we're going to teach you to have a well-oiled machine of staff in your practice, but it does need to start with the patient. So I want you to think about what patients do you currently have that could benefit from you offering IV sedation. And then let's look at what the population of people who could benefit from IV sedation. So the research says that it's at least 50% of the patient population who needs IV sedation. Maybe you're thinking of someone you even saw today. We talk often about the fearful and anxious patients. We talk about someone who can't get numb, someone with a bad gag reflex, someone who has sensitive teeth, someone who's just petrified to come to the dentist. And again, like Clay said, they're looking at you and going, I don't want to be here, right? But you have the opportunity now to offer dentistry in a more comfortable way to not only your existing patients, but patients who don't know that you offer that service just yet. So what we say is you are going to attract new patients that didn't come to your practice before. And almost as important, you're actually going to get a bigger case acceptance from your patients that you currently have. Can you sit down tomorrow morning in your huddle and think about it with your team and say, hey, how about Mrs. Jones? Do you remember that she has that treatment plan because she hasn't been to the dentist in 10 years and we never saw her again? Maybe we can offer her IV sedation. Would she say yes to treatment? And more times than not, the answer would be yes. Clay, did you want to add something here?
Yeah, I do. I'll go ahead and hopefully I'm on time. We're not wasting too much.
No, that's okay.
But the thing is, like Joy mentioned a moment, and written right there, at least 50% of the patient population needs IV sedation. Let's actually linger on that for a second, like 50% of the population. And so really when I describe it to folks, it's it's about creating a bigger door for more people. So all these people, whether and we see it, we'll talk more about it later as well, but we see literally every day that folks that haven't been in for any number of these reasons or combination of these reasons, maybe they're fearful and now they're embarrassed and they're fearing you're going to judge them. When you are able to open a wide door to all these folks and say, yeah, we can help you too, you're now servicing a huge portion of the population that no one else can. Most dentists, and my dad's a dentist, traditional dentists, they're talking to this half of the pie over here. And that's almost all the dentists. The very few ones that can serve this half over here, I don't want to say it's a blue ocean because that's a lovely term. It's very attractive, but it is. And so this whole portion of the population is not being served. They deserve to be served and they're looking for people. They're fearful, but they need help. And we'll talk more about that. But this whole half of the pie is not being served. And if you can simply open the door and say, yeah, we got you, it's huge. It's helpful to them. It's helpful to your practice as well.
That's great. Absolutely.
Keep it trucking. Thank you.
So I get this question probably every day. You're thinking it yourself. Joy, how do I know IV sedation is safe? So I want you to think back to dental school. I think back to dental. Unfortunately, I have still traumatized by days in dental hygiene school, right? And I had to learn how to give injections on an orange before I gave it to classmates, and I was petrified. So I want you to think back, maybe the first time you had to drill a cavity. You were so scared. You're like, I don't even, what if I go too deep? What if it doesn't stop? What if? That is a part of fear that's really normal. And being scared here about incorporating something new into your practice is absolutely okay. But what I would say, and what you've learned over the years, because I know that no one on this call is still scared to drill a tooth, is that with the right knowledge, the right instruction, and the right training, IV sedation is actually one of the safest ways to perform dentistry. Your patient is now still. Your patient has airway that they're breathing on their own. Your patient is ready for you to do a lot of dental work in a short amount of time and not remember any of it. And that's what we teach you to make sure that it is a safe procedure for everybody involved. So when we talk about the safety benefits, specifically what we teach at Vesper Institute, we teach moderate conscious sedation. I do get plenty of dentists all over the country who come to me or call me and say, Joy, I do oral sedation, I'm good. I'm good. Or I do oral sedation. How is it different? So really quickly, oral sedation is along the lines of minimal sedation. And you can see that on this continuum that we're looking at. What we teach at Vesper Institute is a more deeper level of sedation, moderate conscious sedation. And then when we go all the way to the other side of the continuum, we have general anesthesia and deep sedation, and that's what the oral surgeons are using in their practice. So first we have, great music, lighting, a fish tank, all these things to relax the patient. We could try oral sedation, and then what we teach at Vesper, which is moderate conscious sedation. The goal here is that your patients are comfortable and they're relaxed. When we talk about the safety benefits, I always get that question, is the patient sleeping? So yes, the patient is asleep, meaning that they are in a relaxed state, but they are actually still able to respond to verbal commands. That responsiveness from the patient allows you to maintain airway safely. And that's part of the safety that we're going to teach you at Vesper Institute. Asking for those verbal commands, making sure that the patient is in a safe environment throughout the entire procedure. Another thing that we talk about is the fact that the drugs that we use in moderate conscious sedation are titratable. And so when the question comes up, well, I give the patient pills, isn't it the same? Or how come, some patients get really good results and some patients don't? The biggest difference there is that a pill is not really titratable. If you've given the patient some Halcyon or something while they're in the waiting room or the night before, and then they are sitting in your chair and they're looking at you and saying, I don't feel anything, you can't really titrate and give them more. They have to sort of start the process all over again, or it's a different dosage, or they come back a different time. When we talk about IV sedation, it's so much more predictable because you're titrating the drug based on the patient's immediate reactions. We're making them relaxed, we're making them comfortable. The drugs that we teach at Vesper Institute all are reversible. So that is another layer of safety built in. We teach Versed, we teach fentanyl, Precedex, Benadryl, Zofran, and nitrous oxide. The safety benefit of having an IV for the patient means it's going in quicker. I always use the example, if you've ever had a procedure done, any procedure in a hospital or medical like environment setting where they put in the IV and they tell you to count backwards from 10, nobody remembers anything past 8. And that's because the drugs are going in so quickly. That's the same that holds true in the dental office. It is a faster onset, but it's also a shorter duration in the body. Whereas if you're giving a patient a pill, perhaps 12 hours later, 18 hours later, or the next day, they still feel a little groggy, right? With a titratable IV, it is in, it's out, and the patient is feeling fine once you've removed the medicine. So faster onset, shorter duration. And then when we talk about one of the best safety benefits for moderate conscious sedation, I love to talk about procedural amnesia. Now, I'm a hygienist and I love to be in Dr. Sayer's offices and watch what him and his staff do. And so many times the patient turns to Dr. Sayer and says, Dr. Sayer, I am so comfortable. Go ahead. Let's start. And Dr. Sayer looks at them and, hopefully you'll meet him one day. And he looks at them with this puzzled look and he's like, get started. We're done. We just did an hour and a half of dental work. You're all set. So imagine being a fearful patient who now could go through a procedure, could get all the dental work that they've been putting off for 10 or 15 years, and then open their eyes and it's done. They didn't feel anything and they don't remember anything. That is an amazing thing to offer your patients, an amazing like Clay said, to offer that other side of the pie that's so scared to come to your office, but could now feel comfortable knowing they're not going to remember any of it.
That's all really great stuff. And like I said at the beginning, I want to remind folks right here, if you're, getting excited, but also still a little apprehensive because we can tell you these things, but until you experience it, you don't believe it. That's probably the right place to be. And thus maybe have more questions, have
Sure.
to connect you, to Joy at the end or any of the faculty to get into the nitty gritty on the clinical side, those safety benefits to help reassure you. That's what we're here to do. Wouldn't expect that, if you're very fearful, now you're just like, oh, great, Joy said all of these things, I'm convinced. But hopefully you are leaning into like, okay, we've unraveled a few misconceptions and you're feeling better about it. I think that's the goal. And let's keep the conversation going. And we would love to connect you to the faculty and they can explain even more so. They'd be jazzed to get into it with you. What I'm jazzed today to get into, though, is the top 1% of dentists. We kind of say that's part of our marketing, that the top 1% of dentists have IV sedation in common. That is all about production. And the question is probably why? Why is it possible that the top 1% have IV sedation in common? And so for sake of numbers, because that's important, that's how you get into the top 1%, we're going to look at this scale from the average dentist on the far left is probably producing, according to our data and research, 5,000 a day. Whereas an IV sedation dentist is averaging between 11 to 14,000 a day. So that is more than double. And who knows where you are? Maybe you're a little above 5, maybe you're a little below, all good. But we want to make it very clear that with IV sedation, you could get up to 11 to 14,000, possibly even more than that, but certainly feel comfortable and confident you could get to those numbers. I think the question though is like, well, how? Like that sounds great, but Clay, why don't you break down how?
Magic. I'm gonna try to make it as sticky for your brain as possible. And usually that happens by boiling it and distilling it down to its most central concept. So to make it as simple as possible, it's basically, I want you to think about two things. Do you like this? 4 things. 2 things. One is production per appointment, and 2 is patient profile. So let's think on the first one. Production per appointment. Every dentist, every practice, every organization, their menu, their suite of treatments and procedures that they feel that's their thing, that's their bread and butter, that's their claim to fame. It's going to be different. But every dentist, and I think every clinician, every dental team understands that in a typical traditional environment, you're only going to be able to do so much treatment for that appointment, whether you're doing an all-on-4 or, drill and fill, whatever it is on the whole spectrum, there's only so much you can do within the, 30, 45-minute appointment or so around that ballpark. Now, imagine that the patient is asleep. All those benefits that Joy just outlined, procedural amnesia, all those things are active in your working environment. And now instead of, being limited to 45 minutes of treatment, you're able to do an hour and a half more, depending upon your competency and your confidence level. Our doctors at Advanced Dentistry have been doing this for a long time. That's why they're wonderful one-to-one teachers with you, and Joy will get into that later. But they are amazing folks, and they do long procedures. And in those procedures, they're able to deliver a just lot of treatment for that patient, which gets us segueing into our second concept, which is patient profile. Think back to our kind of our conversation earlier of who might be on this half of the pie, folks that haven't been in a while, people that are fearful, people that haven't had a good experience at a traditional dentist office because of gagging, because of special needs, because of maybe they're just very large and they don't fit inside the normal chair. All those types of things is active in the mind of your population. And so they're sitting out innings. They're sitting out a year, 2 years, 5 years. We see folks who've lived, I exaggerate, none, 15, 20, 25 years every day. And so what that means is by the time they come around and they get their head above their fear or their embarrassment or whatever it is, their fear of judgment, they have a lot of needs. And so those are the folks that you're able to now serve. And you can actually serve them in larger units of time. Instead of saying, hey, here's your treatment plan, why don't you come 8 times? It might boil down to this much. So in a single appointment, you can deliver a whole bunch of treatment, and the revenue and the profit from that single appointment is just, it's lovely for the practice and for the health of the business. So if you're able to do that, think about this: one appointment, the next appointment, instead of being like this much productive or this much profitable, it's now this much. Appointment after appointment after appointment after appointment, day after day after day after day, month after month after month after month. Next thing you know, you've got a very productive schedule and a very productive practice. And that gets us into this. So if you're adding up a little bit after a little bit, nothing in this world should be regarded as a silver bullet or a light switch. Everything that is worth taking seriously is worth taking seriously. And our doctors and our students get mastery and confidence and competence. And it's like this: the more that they get under the belt, the more they're able to do. And so if you're stacking up profit after profit after profit and delivering great care to patients who actually want it and who actually really need it, and you're able to kind of just bring all those things into this perfect little chord, this nice harmony, it just floats all boats. And it's really a lovely, lovely experience.
Hey, Clay, can I jump in for a quick second?
Lovely.
You know, one of the things we were talking about earlier
Mhm.
was case acceptance,
Sure.
right? And so presenting, and some doctors come to us and say, Joy, you know, my case acceptance rate isn't so great. Maybe I'm presenting too much, or maybe, you know, the general dentist is struggling with this, right? So now when you present a case to someone and it's a long treatment plan,
Mhm.
the only thing that they're hearing out of you is, wait a minute, I can get all this dental work done in one visit and I don't feel anything and I don't remember anything. Where do I sign up?
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about. That's doing that every single day in your practice. And this is really very, very attainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. No notes. Yes, absolutely. 100%.
So
Great.
the transition that I'll offer is, yes, day after day, year after year, 15 years for sake of a number to put down, you
Sure.
could produce 18 million more, and that it's transformational for you and your practice.
Mhm.
But as Dr. Sayre would say, it does always come back to the patients. So more than anything, it's transformational for the patients. And we've got a couple of testimonials to share so you can really experience what that looks like for them.
So I'm guessing that the doctors on this call this evening get amazing reviews. You are very skilled at what you do, and I'm sure your staff and you collect great reviews. We wanted to show you a couple of Dr. Sayre's reviews because it's more specific about an office that's offering IV sedation and how a patient really values that relationship now. So Aiden wrote, "These guys set the standard for what dentistry should be like. They take the time to explain everything. They make you feel involved in every step of the process. They are prompt and professional. And I continue to go there after moving 20 minutes north because no other dentist compares." We have another one that is going to come up now. And I love this one because everybody on this call knows that doctors are the worst patients. We know it. We have to call it out here. But this scared professional in the medical field finally got to Dr. Sayre and wrote this review because this patient had a transformative experience at the dentist. He said, "I'm a director in the medical field, and I was blown away by this practice. The staff is amazing, the process perfect, and when I say perfect, it was perfection. So like many others, I'm not a fan of going to the dentist, but Dr. Sayre and his staff have helped me," and you got to read along with me here, "have helped me after 12 years of not seeing a dentist to not be fearful. I never write reviews, and this place deserved one from me. Don't be scared, just get there." So how many patients are out in the universe just like Jacob, who know they should go to the dentist, who keep putting it off treatment, but are scared and are looking for a better way that they could go to the dentist and have a great experience. IV sedation allows that to be the opportunity for all of these patients for your practice.
Right. All right, we're going to get now into our program, and to tee it up, I want to put this percentage out here. And again, as we talk about the program, we'll highlight it, but I want to highlight it from the get-go that there is a Vesper difference. There's the reason our program was built to ensure that people aren't just getting certified and not using it, but they're getting certified and implementing it and reaping those benefits for themselves and their patients. So 86% of students, this is going to blow you away, it blows us away every time, fail to implement IV sedation. So 86% of students who do get certified, and this is in the books, in the literature, fail to implement it. We are here, we exist to close that gap. If some other program was doing it, and there'd probably be a lot more, offices offering sedation. And that speaks to that there are challenges to getting going, but that's also why Vesper exists, because we've seen what those challenges are and have been very thoughtful to put together a comprehensive program that bridges the gap between that learning and doing. And to sum it up, best, I will put it on one of the faculty members. He says, Dr. Jay Resnick, we don't train you to do IV sedation, we train you to implement IV sedation. So the goal is that when you go back to your office on Monday, you have the confidence to start that IV and become a dentist that is truly offering it to patients and making sure that your investment of time and money is worth it. That is why our program exists. We want to be a part of your success. We're not doing our job if that's not the case. And we, are adamant that we want to see you successful.
So Leah, when we first started, I will talk about our amazing faculty, but when we first started Vesper Institute and we saw that statistic in Stan Malamed's research, we thought as a group, as faculty and myself, starting this program, we thought there's no way that number is accurate. Like, that's crazy. How could there be that many people? 86 out of 100 people take IV sedation, commit to it, and then don't use it. So we just kept saying, no, 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 no. But guess what? I get calls every day. I have 2 students coming next week to an IV sedation course at Vesper Institute who have already taken the course, but they've waited 10 years and they did nothing with it. And so now they've either spoken to me or to Clay or to Dr. Sayer, and they want to learn it again because now they're realizing their patients can benefit from it. So in order to create the program that we have at Vesper Institute, we had to put together the best faculty in the business, but the best faculty who've been safely practicing IV sedation dentistry for over 45 years. So we have 2 oral surgeons and a general dentist on faculty. We have Dr. John Roberson, an oral surgeon from Mississippi. Dr. Jay Resnick, he's an oral surgeon MD. That brings a unique wealth of information when we talk about medications, when we talk about titrating, when we talk about what drugs the patients are taking, how do we use that with the IV drugs. He is an amazing resource. And then we have our founder and our guiding light, Dr. Sayer, who has 4 successful dental practices in Ohio that the basis of how they do dentistry all day, every day is IV sedation. Together, these 3 gentlemen, I love this on the bottom, it says successfully have completed over 100,000 cases. But something else they've successfully done, they went to see what other courses are out there and what is being taught. And these 3 gentlemen together have actually written the entire curriculum for IV sedation at Vesper Institute. They want to teach you specifically what's working for the 3 of them. And so their expertise together is what's going to give you the confidence and confidence to do it in your practice. I want to talk a little bit about the program. You can tell I'm excited. I could talk about this program. I do talk about this program all the time. I can't go, really in depth about this on a call like this, but I want to give you an overview because at this point, you're probably like, All right, Joy, what's this course all about? How does it work? Tell me the lay of the land here. Okay, so the Vesper Institute IV sedation program is in 4 phases. There's an online phase at home. Do it in your pajamas. If you crack open a beer, nobody knows. Phase 2, you're in person in Cincinnati, Ohio. Phase 3, you actually get partnered with a dentist, a general dentist in Dr. Sayer's office, and you learn how to actually place IVs and use the drugs and titrate and watch for airway and monitoring and everything you need to know. And then phase 4 is really the difference between our program and any other program out there. This is where we're going to give you your support. This is where we're going to make sure that you're comfortable and ready to actually use all that information safely in your own practice. So let's dig into these a little bit one by one. Phase 1 is that online modules. It's 65 hours. I have students that tell me majority of the time they like 8 to 10 weeks to cover it, and it's about 6 to 8 hours a week. What you're going to see here on our sample curriculum, we start talking sedation competency, we start talking medical emergencies, and we do start talking about drug interactions. The phase 2 are these great pictures of our students in Cincinnati at the Vesper Institute. You come in on a Friday afternoon and you stay through Monday. We teach you things like airway maintenance, medical emergencies, indications for the use of moderate sedation in your practice. Now you can look at 2 of these pictures on the right-hand side. This is our mannequin day. And students always tell me this is their favorite day, and it's a long day. I think the last group was there for about 11 hours. They literally just could not get enough of this. We set up the entire Vesper Institute with full-size mannequins, some half-size mannequins, half bodies. We talk about every medical emergency. We talk about titrating. We talk about reversing drugs to the point where you are absolutely comfortable. We practice on our venipuncture lab, which is what you see on the other picture. We practice not only on the fake arms, but we do practice on each other as well. So after those 2 phases, we then move into our phase where it's time to start.
I might have blanked, but did you mention the assistant coming there?
I didn't. Thank you, Leah.
I was like,
Great.
Yeah.
So people ask all the time, when can my assistant come? When can she be a part of he or she be a part of this? We recommend that you bring your assistant to the mannequin day, and then your assistant can stay with you the entire time that you're at one of Dr. Sayer's practices. So you will learn from another dental assistant that is IV sedation certified, but we also have lots of training for your assistant. We're going to send them online training similar to the modules, similar type of modules that you had for your own training. We're also going to send you videos. So one of the things we found is when the doctor is working on the patient cases and the assistant is learning from one of Dr. Sayer's assistant, it's a lot of information. And everybody learns at a different pace. So what happens is sometimes the assistant goes back to your practice, they look down at the setup and go, uh-oh, I think I'm missing something. Well, no worries. We've actually recorded videos of what all your setups need to be, and they're 1 to 2 minute videos. So your assistants will all have that information so that they are really comfortable and ready to go in your practice as well. Thanks, Leah, for that one. When we move into the patient cases, the ADA 2016 guidelines for most states is that you need to treat 20 patients. So that's what we have set up for you. You'll be in one of Dr. Sayer's offices. This is where I like to say there are competitors in the market. There are competitors that can teach you IV sedation. A lot of those competitors are in a hospital setting. What we say at Vesper is this: that is an amazing way to learn IV sedation, but unfortunately, that's not your day-to-day. So instead, we're going to put you in a GP practice that looks and feels just like your home would feel when you go back to your practice. It's one-on-one training with a real-life GP certified IV sedation doctor, one-on-one for 4 or 5 days until you've completed all your cases. And then finally, what we take a lot of pride in is our hand-holding. We want to make sure that you are ready to go. We have an educational liaison who's going to help you fulfill licensing requirements. And let me just tell you, every state is different. Every state has hoops to jump through. We have submitted our program to every state there is. We know exactly what is required and what they're asking for, and we're going to help you with that paperwork. We're going to have a monthly webinar with all former students from Vesper Institute. We're going to have the faculty present cases. We have students now presenting cases. It's an amazing way to connect with your peers and learn about patient cases. And then last but not least, we do have a partnership with a medical supply company who's going to be at Vesper Institute during your course, who's going to say, look, Dr. Roberson, Dr. Resnick, and Dr. Sayer, they've made this cheat sheet for you. They believe this is what you need to get started. You can buy it from them, you can buy it from one of your suppliers back at home, but that cheat sheet, that starter kit is really going to help you, especially if you're going back to a practice where you don't have any of this equipment ready to go.
Right. All right, we've been sprinting along. Before we dive into the final section, I want to do a quick recap to make sure that we are all on the same page now, because we've covered a lot of material. So let's go through, just remind ourselves in the past 50 minutes what we've uncovered. And again, if you want to nod along, put in the chat that you're like, oh yeah, that was my favorite section, always welcome to do it. But let's see, what have we discussed so far? The first thing we talked about is that dentistry is really challenging and hard. And traditional dentistry, especially in today's world, is perhaps not ready and equipped to meet those challenges. But IV sedation makes things much easier. It could be the solution. If you're sticking with us, we hope that that's because you're like, yeah, I'm intrigued. I'd like to learn more. This IV sedation dentistry, that could be what I've been looking for all along. I don't have to deal with those challenges. But is it safe? Well, we hope you realize that it is safer than you think. Still fair to have concerns, but there are a lot of safety benefits. And as soon as you really get into it, you'll come to understand that those, while valid concerns at this moment in time, with the training and confidence, you're able to navigate them. And if anything, something that the faculty say is it makes you prepared for any type of emergency in your office. Sure, you might be concerned about an IV sedation emergency, but this is going to make you prepared for anything. And it's sadly inevitable that one day something is going to happen. That is life. This makes sure that you're on the top of your game. So is your staff. So I think that's really important. We talked about one of the biggest benefits is that it increases your production. So you're able to take care of patients, and along the way, you're able to earn more money, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And then finally, we've moved into why we're here, why we hope you're here tonight, which is if you're thinking this could be the next step and you're entertaining other programs and you've looked around, you're like, Vesper, I know this program exists and that program exists, but now I can compare and see why Vesper is so great, because we think it's a phenomenal program. We wouldn't have started it if something else was knocking it out of the park. No knocks to those other programs, but we really do believe we've put together a program with those intentional 4 phases divided out to ensure your success. And that kind of brings us to, well, what is the program value? So there's a lot of value packed in what we're offering. We'll get then to tuition, but I first want to set it up in the context of what is the value that you would get by being a part of the program. And there's a lot on this list. I'm not going to go through everything, but I will highlight 3 items on the list. One is that 4 days of training one-on-one with a GP. And Joy hit on it a lot because it is a differentiating factor. You're not in a hospital setting, you're not with a group, you have one-on-one experience. The value of that is easily $23,000, if not more. So that's just incredible experience that you would have by being a part of our program. The second thing, the monthly support calls. So again, the reason 86% of students who get certified don't use it is because they don't have the bridge to go from the time that they were learning with the program to be able to do it in their office. we've built in support because we know that that is critical into our program value, and that's about $12,000. And then finally, the certification support. It's a headache. Paperwork's annoying. Every state is different, as Joy talked about. Who knows? You don't have to worry about that. You get to worry about dentistry and feeling confident going back to your office. We're going to help you with the paperwork, and that's a $2,000 value. If you add everything up, the value of our program ends up being $64,000. Again, I might say that it's even more than that, but we'll go with 64,000, which we do really believe is an incredible value. And when you compare that to the tuition, it's a deal. It's quite a deal. And I'll let Joy talk about the tuition and how you can work through that if you're interested.
Sure. So you can see on the screen here, the actual price of our program is $23,000. Very competitive with other programs, as we said, but with all of the value that Leah broke down for you on the previous slide. So yes, we recognize that is a hefty amount of money. So we try to do the easiest thing for all of our students and offer interest-free 12-month financing, $1,500 a month. The cost of a MacBook, the cost of your really nice car, the cost of an airline ticket to go somewhere fabulous. You could do this and break this down into $1,500 a month. Now, think back just for a minute to what Clay was talking about, to how you're going to be making more money almost instantly. You will long forget this $1,500 payment 6 months after that course is over. I can promise you that. But one thing I do want to say about this is that we want you to be a part of the Vesper team and be a part of our courses. So we want to make sure that this number works for you. We have our next IV sedation course in October. It's completely sold out. It's next week. And I happen to have 2 spots left in our December group. So if you're on this call tonight and you're sort of thinking about jumping into December, definitely let's talk sooner than later.
Speaking of talking.
All right, so here's how you get in touch with me. Important stuff, right? So I would say 90% of my doctors send me texts, and that's great because I don't know your schedule and you don't know mine, and maybe we're on different coasts, right? So send me a text message and say, Joy, I want to talk to you about December. I want to talk to you about what's going on in my practice. Can you tell me if you think this is a good fit for me or not? Do you think this? Do you think that? Let's talk. I would love to do that. So here is my email address. Here is my cell phone number. You can scan the QR code and book a call directly with me. And I would also tell you, here is our website at vesperinstitute.com. There's a lot of podcasts and videos and a lot more information of things that possibly we weren't able to answer tonight because of the time that we had. So feel free to poke around there and see if you can get some more information about our course as well.
Yeah. We can put this in the chat. We'll also
Sure.
have it again at the end. But quickly, we're going to run through a few of the common FAQs because we've done a lot of webinars. Joy's talked to a lot of people, so we tend to know what gets asked. So the first one would be, what are the requirements to start the program, Joy?
Okay, so this is an easy one. I'm glad this is the easy ones first. Okay, so you need to be a dentist. Let's start with some basics. You need to be a dentist with a license in good standing from a state that you are going to apply to. You need ACLS training. This is important because I've had a couple students recently who said, did you say BLS training? And I said, no, ACLS training. That's required to work on patients. And then all we do is we ask you to come in with an open mind, come in ready to learn, come in ready to change how you practice dentistry. It is a $5,000 deposit to hold your place. So whether it be for this December group that's coming up, maybe you're eyeing the March sedation course, that's fine. As long as you pay your $5,000, you're able to get online and start your online learning as well. So those are the requirements to get you started.
Perfect.
So we did cover this a little bit, but again, highlight reel reminder, we would love for your dental assistant to come with you. You really are only going to be successful doing and practicing IV sedation as if your assistant is there with you. I'm being really honest. That is the way this works. Your assistant is going to monitor the patient. Your assistant is going to be there with you the whole time. So we have in-person training with Dr. Sayer's staff for that entire time that you're here in the clinic. We have those videos that they can reference anytime they have any questions. And we also have online training as well. So lots of different ways for their staff to be trained, but we really do see the value. And one thing I didn't mention, there's no fee for that. It's actually included in your tuition. So we train your staff, we give them all that extra information, and there is no additional costs.
That's great. All right, this is definitely one of the most common questions, but a pretty
No
good one
question.
to
I
back
get
down.
I get this. I think Dr. Sayer gets this maybe as many times a day as I do. So here's how this works. Your liability insurance is based on the state that you practice in. So what I'm going to tell you is go to your state, go to your insurance carrier and find out. But I think you will be surprised majority of the time once you say that you are implementing IV sedation, that you've taken this course, that you're certified, all of those things, you've checked all the boxes, the increase in your insurance is really very minimal. In Ohio, where Dr. Sayer's offices are and his 12 associates are practicing, they've all said it is such a minimal amount of increase. And even students who have been through our program from, I know we have Texas, Colorado, California, Florida, New Jersey, we have not heard feedback from anybody that it was a major inconvenience or a major change. It really was a small number. So nothing to really be concerned about.
Great. Clay, this one's for you. How would practicing IV sedation help a doctor attract better staff?
You get such good ones.
I love this one. Thank
That's
you.
a fun one.
Softball. I do love this though. Again, like I said before, there's no silver bullets. There's no like light switches. But again, I want to kind of try to boil it down to this most simplistic. If you have patients that are coming in with actual needs and therefore actual appreciation and actual cases, whatever you want to do, again, going back to like every, clinician, every team does different menu, a different suite of procedures. If you have staff who are engaged and busy, you will find that people have a higher ceiling, and there's growth, there's clinical growth, there's mental stimulation, there's a sense of being clicked in, dialed in their lanes and thriving. And I think that's just kind of like a natural byproduct, and that's something that kind of just compounds over time. I think the thing that is probably a little bit more time sensitive, and again, it's going to take some time for everyone to kind of implement it differently. But if you are going back to kind of like the financial piece, if you're kind of making steps profit wise and you're stacking up a little bit of profit over days, weeks, months, years, you're going to find that you are in a place where you can kind of bring into reality the thing that you wanted as your practice back in dental school. Your picture of like, oh, I want my practice to look like this. I got my team, I got my goals, what kind of dentistry I want to do. Chances are you pictured people staying with you for a while. In order for them to do that, then we've got to offer them pretty good compensation packages. And we all know that staffing's tough. Since COVID, it's just been bonkers out there. Having a good compensation package, not to mention that the byproduct of like, hey, you're actually going to like your job and like what you do and feel appreciated rather than hated by the patients. You're able to offer them a little bit more money. And if you want to do, not every practice offers insurance. Now you can offer benefits, 401k, pension, whatever it is you want to do. You're now going to have the financial wiggle room to put that into reality. So you can attract better talent, retain them because they're getting a higher ceiling and they're liking what they're doing. It's a kind of an ecosystem that you're able to grow as a natural byproduct of how you're focusing your practice.
For sure. I'm going to say one more thing and it will transition to the last one. which is, if you're practicing IV sedation, you become that top 1% dentist.
Sure.
We've done some sports analogies tonight. You're sort of creating a winning practice. You're a winning team. That attracts people. That's magnetic. People want to be a part of a winning team, and it makes it much easier to say yes and want to stick around. They're not going to want to be traded somewhere else. They're going to be the best team. And that is also kind of how one way I'd answer this question. How does it make my day so much better? We don't have the revolving door of staff because you're attracting talented staff. You have patients saying yes to treatment. You're doing really interesting treatment instead of perhaps just drilling and filling all day. You're making more money. So there's a lot of ways that it makes it better. If you think of all of the common pain points and challenges of the dentist, and you could wipe those away and have a well-oiled machine, IV sedation is kind of the ticket to create all of the atmosphere and environment to build the dental life you want. And we ask dentists who now are IV sedation certified, if they took away, your sedation license, would you still practice? And before we can finish the question, it's an emphatic no. Like, I would basically quit dentistry, because once you see the power of IV sedation for yourself and for your patients, there's really no going back. So it's an incredible, incredible, I think just transformational thing that you can do as a dentist. And we hope that you have learned some new things tonight. You're, at least you were intrigued if you came, even more so now after the fact. We really appreciate you attending, and pop up Joy's information one more time so you can reach out to her after the fact. We'll send you your CE, all of those things. If you haven't actually put your name in the chat, so we make sure we get you your CE, please do that before we tidy up. But yeah, we just appreciate you spending your Friday Eve, Junior Friday Junior with us.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yep, Friday Junior.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thanks to the amazing team at Vesper Institute for bringing you this high energy webinar. I hope it was different than all the other dental webinars that you're on, because sometimes they're not as exciting, I know. But if anybody has any last minute questions, we can take them. Otherwise, we're going to wish you all a great night. My contact information is here. Again, take a screenshot. Would love to hear from you, and would love to see if you have any questions for me or for the faculty.
Well said.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.
Thank
Friday
you.
Junior. Bye, buddy.